It's hard to pinpoint exactly when my interest in international relations started, but today I would like to dive into that and also get into why I wanted to create the KO show. Like a lot of guys growing up, I was fascinated by war and war movies. I even wanted to create one of my own. One of my earliest school projects was studying Desert Storm in the Gulf War in Iraq. I still remember the note cards I wrote to prepare. When I went off to college, I was studying business, but I took a political science course, which introduced me to the international relations program. From then on, I became obsessed. I really liked reading about CIA officers whose job was to recruit agents in foreign countries to spy on them. But then I took a more diplomatic path. I studied and took the Foreign Service Officers test to become a diplomat within the State Department, and I missed it by 1 point. Around that time, I watched a TED talk from a British diplomat, and he regretted his service as a diplomat because they were covering up lies about the Iraq War rather than trying to prevent it. It was at this time I graduated San Diego State and worked in the tech field for a bit, but I always knew I wanted to go back to school. So I enrolled at the University of San Diego in their Peace Studies program, and I took mediation and conflict resolution courses. It was at this time I had a big political awakening. I used to think that our country caused a lot of problems around the world, but we had to stand up to countries like North Korea, China, Iran, Russia. But then I looked into our history with those countries. I learned about the Korean War, where we dropped 500,000 bombs. We killed 2 million Korean civilians and leveled 80% of their buildings. I started learning about how we surround Russia, China, Iran with military bases. And I world differently. Are we standing up to their aggression, or are they just trying to survive a world dominated by us? I believe that is the case, that we Americans live in the belly of the beast. Our country is more evil than those countries. And while we may have our freedoms here, that comes at the cost of the freedoms from people in other countries. And our freedoms here are deteriorating. In Russia and China, they're building huge, wonderful infrastructure projects. Their public transportation is better than us. People can afford housing, healthcare, and education. Again, our life is deteriorating over here, mostly because we fund this aggression abroad. I believe we get away with this because Americans on both sides are the most propagandized people on the planet. What does that mean? We've been fed a narrative about the world that is untrue. It gets on both sides to support war. It used to be just Republicans supporting war. Fox News was behind that. But then propaganda became more sophisticated with NPR and the New York Times. You may see this popular Ukrainian flag waving around, and people are waving it because they want to look out for a weaker country. They think Russia is this big bully. Russia did invade Ukraine, but we weren't taught how we provoked this war. We've prolonged it. We send all this money to provide weapons to this war. Our goal was not to save Ukraine, but to use Ukraine to weaken Russia, and we failed. Again, when I say that Americans are the most propagandized people on the planet, here's an example. We are bickering over who is worse between Trump or Biden when they both are endorsing one of the worst crimes I've ever seen, a live streamed genocide of the Palestinian people. I'm not a fan of Trump and I'm not a fan of Biden. What I'm annoyed with is people arguing who's worse when clearly both of them are giving us more war. Trump right now is winding down the Ukraine war. That's great news. But what is he going to do? He's only going to start funding the Israeli war even more. I'd like to give a little update on that war from past videos. Right now, Israel is continuing to violate the ceasefire. They have over 900 violations, and they are committing the biggest war crime yet, where they are cutting off aid to the 2 million people in Gaza. I will show footage of Palestinians, thousands of them in the street, organizing iftar, which is a fast breaking meal during Ramadan. Their will is strong and it will not be broken.